When I found out my fiancée was the heiress to one of New York's most powerful dynasties, I chose to leave. It wasn't because she deceived me, but because of what she told her friends. Caleb, the only reason I chased you was because you're so cheap. This is just a cheap game between me and your best friend. You're nothing but a prop to him. You and I, a kid from a poor family like yours, we aren't from the same world. It was only later that she had an epiphany, realizing that during all those nights she spent with me, she had actually fallen in love. But by the time she regretted it and wanted to beg for my forgiveness, I'd already pledged myself to the state, vanishing to forge the nation's shield. And by then, I had a girl by my side whose eyes saw only me. Your application for the research fellowship has been approved. A secure transport team will pick you up in 7 days. This is a 7-year, closed research project. Please settle your personal affairs. On behalf of the country and the people, I sincerely thank you for carrying this burden. In the silence of the rustic courtyard, the voice from the phone was crystal clear. I gripped the device tightly, my emotions surging like the tides. According to our files, you have a girlfriend. Are you truly prepared for this? This time, I didn't hesitate. My answer was firm. I'm ready. And she and I have no future. She isn't a factor anymore. Just as the words left my mouth, the wooden gate to the yard creaked open. What do you mean, no future? What are you ready for? Serena Sterling's voice rang out from behind me. I turned to look at her as I hung up the phone. Nothing. Just a friend who owes me money and won't pay up. She was wearing a white form-fitting t-shirt tucked into loose jeans, her waist slender and swaying like a willow in the breeze. Her face was elegant, like a muse stepping out of a painting. She walked up to me, hooked her arms around my neck, and sat sideways on my lap. I bought you a gift. Serena pulled out a ring and slid it onto my finger. Well, do you like it? Our wedding is in 7 days. By then, I'll spend 3 months' salary to buy you a huge diamond ring. I nodded flatly, saying nothing. My reaction seemed to surprise her. In the past, whenever she gave me a gift, I would pull her into a passionate embrace, giving her the most sincere response. But today, I barely reacted. What's wrong? Is my Caleb unhappy today? Who messed with you? Serena cupped my face coquettishly, her bright eyes staring at me, looking like they were about to overflow with affection. Nothing. It's just, buying these things is a waste of money. We need to save up so we can buy a house in the city later. I offered a perfunctory excuse. Serena pinched my cheek. Silly. Worst case, I'll work a few extra months of overtime. Whatever other boyfriends have, my Caleb has to have too. I knew she thought I was blaming her for spending money recklessly, but I didn't have the energy to correct her, so I let her think what she wanted. The sunset is so beautiful today. Serena kissed me lightly on the cheek, then got up, saying she needed a shower and change. Not long after she went inside, I saw her phone light up on the table. Serena, I love the new Cartier diamond ring you sent me today. Thank you for the thought. It was a familiar profile picture. The attached photo showed a dazzling diamond sparkling brilliantly in the sunset. I looked down at the ring Serena had just put on my hand. It looked like something bought from a dollar store. I smiled silently. I looked up at the setting sun. The evening glow filled my eyes with a haze of color, and old memories began to shift and turn within that light. 5 years ago, after graduating college, Serena suggested we move back to my hometown, a rustic town rich with history. I never understood why someone like Serena, a campus celebrity at MIT with such outstanding looks, would pursue me without reason. After all, aside from my grades and my brain, I was just a kid from an ordinary family. We confirmed our relationship in our junior year. It moved fast. Like any normal couple, we dated, went on walks in the woods, watched movies, stayed in hotels, until graduation, when she suddenly proposed returning to my hometown with me. She made a pact. Once we save enough money, we would go back to the city and buy a home of our own. To fulfill that pact, 5 years ago, I gave up the olive branch extended by my mentor, a prestigious 5-year research project, and brought her here. I worked from dawn till dusk, relying on the orchard to save money, often running wholesale deliveries into town. I just wanted to make our wish come true as soon as possible. Since we lived in a tourist town, the economy was decent enough for me to reach my goal. But last weekend, I delivered a batch of fruit to a bar in town and accidentally ran into Serena. She was dressed to the nines, dazzling like a celebrity under the spotlight. She was supposed to be working at the ticket booth at the scenic park, yet she stepped out a massive Ford Raptor, leading a group of her girlfriends from the city into the bar. I was handing over the goods to the staff as she was ushered in by the crowd. I walked past the booth and heard the conversation between her and her friends. Serena, are you really planning to stay in this backwater dump forever? How much longer are you going to play house with your country bumpkin boyfriend? If he knew who you really were, wouldn't he drop dead from shock? It can't be helped. Who told Serena to fall for Julian Thorne? It's Julian's fault for cutting off ties with his family just to follow his country girlfriend back to this godforsaken place. It smells like cow manure everywhere. You've been spiting him for so long. Serena, haven't you considered dumping Caleb? Living in that rundown shack every day, playing at such a cheap romance. If it were me, I'd lose my mind. That's why Serena is amazing. The grand heiress of the Sterling family, enduring a rural boyfriend for 5 whole years just to stay in Julian's orbit. It really is a kind of devotion you can't find even with a lantern. Hearing this, Serena just sipped her wine gracefully, not answering. Until that moment, I hadn't realized that the girlfriend I thought came from an ordinary background like mine was actually a Sterling, New York royalty. And Julian Thorne, my college roommate and best friend, was actually the heir to the Thorne empire. I knew Julian had come here for his girlfriend, and that his girlfriend was a high school classmate of mine. But I didn't know there were so many twists and turns involved. It turned out the one Serena loved had always been her childhood friend, Julian. She only chased me to spite him. They were playing a cheap game, and I was just a tool in it. So I chose to leave. 5 years ago, I gave up my future. This time, when the country called again, I was willing to dedicate my life. I didn't want to play this forced childhood sweetheart game with Serena anymore. After dinner, I took a cold shower. When I came out, Serena was already lying in bed. She put down her book and turned her gaze to me. I saw her watery eyes fixate on my shirtless upper body, her fair cheeks flushing red instantly. Her throat moved slightly, as if she were swallowing. Even after all this time, whenever she saw my muscles, she became someone else entirely. When she got crazy, it was like she had a split personality. Before, I thought this was just her unique way of loving me. Now, I didn't think so. As soon as I lay down, Serena couldn't resist hugging me from behind. Her hot breath hit my earlobe and neck, making me feel a wave of discomfort. I'm tired today. I stopped her hand from wandering over me, keeping my voice calm and controlled. I felt her freeze. Her movement stopped, though her arms still hugged me tightly. She pressed against my back, seemingly trembling slightly. I didn't know if she was struggling with the rejection. After all, I had never rejected her before. Whenever she wanted it, I gave it. I used to be even more passionate than her, because Serena really was a poison, a rose with thorns. But today, I refused because I didn't want to fall into this trap of cheap tenderness again. About 10 minutes later, she slowly calmed down, whispered good night in a husky voice, and finally drifted off to sleep. I lay there with my eyes closed, pretending to sleep, offering no response. The next morning, Serena was woken up by the sound of me packing. When she came out to the yard, I was throwing things away. A handmade chair, a hand-carved model fighter jet, a wooden pistol, a floral-padded winter coat I bought in town. Why are you throwing all these away? Serena ran over and grabbed my hand. I turned to face her nervous, panicked expression. The sleepiness in her eyes had vanished. You put your heart into making and buying every single one of these. You used to cherish them so much. Why throw them away now? They don't look broken to me. I smiled faintly. They gathered dust, so I'm tossing them. I'll get new ones later. I intended to brush her off, but Serena gripped my hand tightly. Her eyes were red. She seemed desperate for me not to discard these items. Suddenly, my phone rang. As soon as I answered, Julian Thorne's voice echoed from the speaker. He was my roommate in college, and our bond was ironclad, or at least that's what I used to think. As for now, Caleb, you free today? Come get wasted with your bro. Chloe just threatened to break up with me again. Said she won't marry me. If we get drunk enough, maybe I'll just leave. When Julian's voice came through, I saw Serena's expression shift instantly. She immediately let go of my hand and leaned in urgently to hear. I tossed a handmade wooden doll in the box. Serena didn't react. At this moment, she no longer cared about the items. If I remembered correctly, that doll was for her first birthday here. I carved it myself to look just like her. It was still lifelike. I had inherited my family's wood-carving skills, after all. Her pathetic, aggrieved look just moments ago had almost made me cave and keep the stuff. I'm only free this afternoon. Before I could finish, Serena interrupted urgently. What do you mean afternoon? You're free now. We have to go immediately. Chloe wants to break up with Julian. He must be in a terrible mood. If he does something stupid, it would be awful. I wasn't surprised by her reaction. Instead, I nodded casually. Sure, you go change. I'll finish throwing this stuff out. Serena nodded with a soft okay, then added, hurry up. Watching her rush back into the house to change, I looked down at the items in the box and laughed. Turns out, in her eyes, you guys can become worthless in an instant, completely disregarded. just like me. Thinking this, I carried the cardboard box out of the yard and dumped it into the large dumpster at the village entrance. Time to say goodbye. But after tossing the items, I didn't go back immediately. Instead, I turned and went to Old Man Miller's house. "Caleb, son, why suddenly rent out the house and the orchard? Ain't you getting married in a few days? You worked yourself to the bone for that day. Now you lease everything out. What will you do? What will you eat? Where will you live? And Serena, such a good girl, coming from a big city like New York to stay here with you. Don't be foolish now." Listening to the village head's warm persuasion, I suddenly didn't know how to answer. Before learning the truth, I never doubted Serena's intentions. Her tenderness and kindness were things I could see and touch. But the more real it seemed, the harder it was to accept that I had been deceived for 5 years, that I was just a cheap tool in her spiteful game. For her, I had given my heart, severed my future, and given her everything I had. But in the end, I became the country boyfriend in other people's mouths, cheaper than air. "Mr. Miller, Serena and I won't have a future. Please handle the rental for me. Save the rent money and use it to pave a new road for the village. That way, the elderly and kids won't be afraid to go out when it rains." Before I could walk back home, Serena was already calling to rush me. She rode her scooter furiously up to me. I asked her a question she didn't expect. "Aren't you supposed to be working at the park today? You have time." My question stunned her. She froze for a few seconds before reacting, casually making up an excuse about having the day off. Usually, I rode the scooter with her on the back. Today, I discovered her skills were better than mine. She drove fast, seemingly unable to wait to see her childhood sweetheart, Julian. Seeing that she had even put her t-shirt on inside out, I couldn't help but recall the last time Julian and Chloe had a fight. She had been just as anxious to drag me along. I wasn't without my suspicions back then. But every time I asked, she would lean gently into my arms, claiming she acted that way for my sake, because Julian and I were best friends, and she didn't want me to worry. The excuses were always the same. Thinking back, I was adorably stupid. Mostly it was because she spoke so sweetly. Her look of love never seemed fake, dispelling my doubts instantly and making me trust her completely. If I hadn't bumped into her at the bar that weekend, I don't know how long I would have been kept in the dark. We arrived at Julian's shop. He and Chloe ran a flower shop in the old town, neither big nor small. When we arrived, the closed sign hung on the door. Walking in, we saw Julian sitting on the ceramic tile floor, his eyes vacant. The floor was littered with broken flower stems. Clearly, a violent argument had just occurred. Julian's eyes were red, tears still clinging to the corners. Serena walked straight up to him, pulled a tissue from her bag, and gently wiped his tears. She was so tender, like she was caring for her own man. "It's okay. Don't be mad. If you keep frowning, you'll get wrinkles. In the end, it's the childhood bond that wins." One sentence from Serena, and Julian immediately snapped out of it, nodding with a soft grunt. I leaned against the doorframe, watching them indifferently. Once Julian recovered a bit, I asked, "Why the fight?" My question made Julian shoot up, his face full of anger. "I just bought a BMW motorcycle. It only cost a few grand, and Chloe wants to break up over it. Don't you think that's excessive?" I opened my mouth, then swallowed the words I had prepared. I glanced back at the brand new BMW motorcycle parked outside. The emblem was eye-catching. I used to think Julian was like me, a kid from a normal family who just had a strong vanity and liked to buy expensive things to keep up appearances. But today, I remained silent. This was just a rich kid not knowing the price of bread. After all, they were born with silver spoons, unlike ordinary people like me. I had to split every penny in half. So, I leaned against the door, lit a cigarette, and watched Serena amuse her childhood crush. For about half an hour, I watched Serena make Julian laugh. Finally, he agreed to go to the scenic spots with us to relax. I followed silently behind the two of them as they climbed the stone steps up Mount Sentinel. Passing every shrine, Serena and Julian would kneel and burn incense together. They looked so devout, like a couple sincerely praying for love. When we passed through the dark tunnel of enlightenment, he held Serena's hand tightly, screaming recklessly into the darkness, as if leaving all unhappiness there to be greeted by light on the other side. I followed calmly, remembering the first time I brought Serena here. She had screamed just like that. Perhaps, back then, she was venting her frustration over her unrequited love for her childhood friend. But it would be over soon. 6 more days. After I left, she would get what she wanted. I was like a complete ghost, thoroughly ignored by Serena. Until we reached halfway up the mountain. She hadn't looked back at me once. Just as we reached the halfway point, I twisted my left ankle. Serena frowned at me, hesitating before saying, "How about I accompany Julian to the summit first? You rest here." "Okay." I nodded flatly. Receiving my response, Serena couldn't wait to climb to the top with Julian. Seeing her excitement, I remained silent. I knew the legend. It was said that any couple who reached the summit at sunset would be blessed by the spirits of Mount Sentinel. I was the one who had told her that story. Thanks, Caleb. You're a good guy. Julian gave me a hug, then headed for the peak with Serena by his side. I didn't watch their backs. Instead, I looked at the horizon. The sun was setting. They probably wouldn't make it in time. But it didn't matter to me anymore. I completely stopped caring. I rubbed my twisted ankle. After waiting about half an hour, the sunset set the sky ablaze like fire. So beautiful. I watched entranced. In that fiery glow, a gust of wind blew a red silk ribbon to my feet. I caught it instinctively. On it was a wish written by a young tourist couple. May we wake up every day and see each other. I didn't know them, but I was certain that when they wrote this, they were deeply in love. I retied the ribbon to a nearby branch, watching it dance in the colorful light. I sincerely hoped their wish would come true. Don't end up like me. Ultimately just a player in a rich person's game. I didn't wait for Serena and Julian. Once my foot felt a bit better, I went down the mountain alone. By the time I reached the bottom, night had fallen, but I saw two unexpected people. Serena and Julian walked over to explain. They said walking down was too tiring, so they took the cable car. Looking at Serena explaining this to me, I smiled gently and shook my head. It's fine. I'm already down. In her eyes, there was only him. Taking the cable car down, she hadn't sent a single message or called. But my reaction seemed to surprise Serena. I was too calm. I didn't pay her any mind and turned to go to the park restrooms. When I came out, I saw Serena standing around the corner making a phone call. Although I didn't know who she was calling, I heard the content. She wanted to give Julian a spectacular fireworks show. After we ate dinner and walked out, a group of people in panda costumes suddenly swarmed the street corner. They held bouquets of fresh flowers and handed them one by one to Julian. I, on the other hand, was pushed to the edge again and again. Since my left foot wasn't fully healed, I was shoved to the ground. If I hadn't reacted quickly and scrambled up, I probably would have been trampled. I stood alone on the sidelines, watching the smile constantly bloom on Julian's face, while Serena laughed along beside him. It seemed Julian's smile was the source of her joy. It was the first time I'd seen her with that look of pure happiness. It turned out she had never been happy with me. I knew Serena had meticulously arranged all of this. Even the fireworks that exploded in the sky the next second were her doing. Colorful, brilliant fireworks streaked like meteors, blossoming in the night sky, illuminating the eyes of everyone watching. I watched it all calmly. I saw Julian's gloomy mood completely vanish under Serena's careful orchestration. His face was now full of unconcealed delight. He said, "So beautiful. Does the park do fireworks today? Isn't that usually for major holidays?" No one answered his question. Serena's slight, smiling upturn of the lips explained everything. But before the fireworks even finished, Julian unexpectedly received a call from Chloe. He immediately rushed back in a panic. I didn't know what Chloe said to him, but I saw the expression on his face. It was more vivid than anything Serena had done all day. He was happy, excited. Without even having time to say goodbye to Serena, Julian rode off on his motorcycle, ignoring Serena shouting his name from behind, tearfully begging him to stay. After Julian left, I watched Serena, who had been excited and happy all day, suddenly wilt, as if all her strength had been drained. She was incredibly unhappy. She smashed the flowers in her hand onto the ground and kicked over a nearby trash can. She seemed unwilling to accept that her carefully planned day had ended with a single phone call from Chloe. Watching her angry, helpless, self-destructive state, I felt she looked a bit like a dog. The next second, Serena suddenly turned around, and my eyes instantly collided with hers. The complex emotions on her face vanished in an instant. It was as if she only just remembered my existence. Acting as if nothing had happened, she smiled gently, walked quickly to me, and suddenly hugged my waist. "Caleb, isn't tonight's fireworks display, paired with me, just beautiful? Thinking of me only after being abandoned by someone else. Just like a trash can, you only toss things in when you need to get rid of garbage." I pushed her away, expressionless. Serena seemed to panic for a moment, looking like she feared I hadn't noticed something, and rushed to explain. "Caleb, today." I cut her off directly. I picked up a red wooden prayer plaque from a vendor's stall nearby. I heard that writing a wish here and hanging it on a lantern is very effective. I had heard enough of her truths and lies. I didn't want to give her a chance to explain. I turned my back and wrote my wish on the wooden plaque. By the time Serena leaned in, I had already wrapped it in a red cloth bag, wrote my name on the outside, and hung it on a nearby prayer lantern. I don't need to write a wish, because all I want is for Caleb to be with me forever, for us to be happy for a lifetime, to get married smoothly in 7 days, and to make enough money to buy a house in New York. Perhaps to cover up everything she did today, she said her wish to me with deep affection. I smiled and didn't answer, just calmly watching the prayer plaque swaying on the tree. For the rest of my life, may I never see Serena again. Did you wish for us to be happy forever? She grabbed my hand. I looked back at her, smiled, and said nothing. Does your foot still hurt? Should I take you to the hospital? Serena asked with concern on the way home. I just smiled and shook my head, indicating it was fine. In reality, I was limping, but I didn't want to see her hypocritical side anymore. Without Julian, she was so gentle and considerate to me. With Julian, she treated me like I was invisible. Such deception had completely killed my heart. When we got home, while she was showering, I applied medicine to my ankle alone. The night passed peacefully. Nothing major happened in the next 2 days. But on the morning of the 5th day, Serena received a call and rushed out the door. I took the time to call the partners in town and the county, informing them I was quitting. However, most still hoped I would supply this batch of fruit. I didn't refuse their request. I spent the day picking and loading the fruit, then drove to deliver it to the partners in town. The ones in the county were too far, so I agreed to ship it. Otherwise, a day or two wouldn't be enough for me. Since I paid the postage, they didn't refuse. During the delivery, I saw Julian's social media post. Chloe was breaking up with him again, and this time he agreed decisively. The post was from this morning. I knew why Serena had left in such a hurry this morning, but I didn't care. One more day, and I would leave this place. Just as I delivered the last batch to the hotel in town and prepared to leave, 2 figures suddenly ran out of the hotel in a hurry. Caleb. Hearing someone call out, I turned and saw Serena's beautiful, delicate face and Julian running ahead of her. I paused for a moment, seeming to understand something. Chloe jumped in the river to commit suicide. We have to go. Julian ran up and grabbed my arm. Seeing his anxious look, I felt a sudden wave of nausea. They didn't even care why I appeared here. Why were you two at the hotel? I asked, feigning surprise as I scanned them. Julian was stunned by my question. I saw Serena lower her eyes to avoid my gaze, her 2 pinky fingers twirling around each other in front of her stomach. That was her habit whenever she made a mistake in front of me. I understood everything instantly. I even saw that Serena's white blouse was noticeably wrinkled, as if put on in a panic. The buttons were misaligned. Even though she tried hard to hide it, I still spotted the dark red hickey hidden under her collar. I hadn't touched her in 2 days. The conclusion was self-evident. Her hair was messy, uncombed, and her cheeks still held a flush of red. Maybe Chloe's suicide attempt wasn't without reason. She probably discovered something too, though her choice to undervalue her own life was tragic. Caleb, listen to me. Before Serena could finish, Julian suddenly snatched the car keys from my hand and jumped into the driver's seat. Why are we stalling? Save my Chloe first, he yelled. I turned and sat in the back seat, unwilling to listen to any explanation from Serena. It was all futile. Right now, with every breath she took, I felt disgusted. She sat in the passenger seat, saying nothing. Julian drove fast, barely braking, blowing through red lights. When you court disaster, disaster finds you. Because he was driving too fast, the wheels skidded on a turn without braking. The vehicle rolled onto its side, sliding a long distance. Luckily, it only crashed through the guardrail and didn't cause major injuries. I sat in the back, world spinning, listening to Julian curse. He said, it was all this crappy truck's fault. Indeed, rich kids like them couldn't understand how much this delivery truck meant to me. By the time the vehicle stopped, I was on the verge of losing consciousness. My vision was a blur. Shadows moved. I saw a panicked Serena crawl out with difficulty, then pull Julian out of the driver's seat. And then, she left. Supporting a staggering Julian, she went to the hospital with the help of passersby. From beginning to end, she never looked at me in the back seat. My body felt like it was filled with lead, sinking bit by bit into darkness. My consciousness felt submerged under layers of ice. An endless surge engulfed me, and the coldness of my body made me feel a bit desperate. Am I going to die? But I'm supposed to leave tomorrow. Serena really is a lingering ghost. At the critical moment, she drags me down. When I opened my eyes again, I was in the hospital. The ward was dimly lit, and my body ached. A nurse came to change my dressing, and, seeing I was awake, said, "You're lucky. Nothing serious. Just observation for a few days, and you can be discharged. The police officer who brought you in has left. You should call your family to handle the paperwork." Listening to the nurse, I realized the police had brought me to the hospital. She told me the other two people in the car had checked themselves in and, like me, had no serious injuries, just scrapes and bruises. Looking at the empty ward after the nurse left, I saw the moon outside was full. Mid-Autumn Festival was approaching. I picked up my phone. I had been unconscious for only a few hours, but the phone was silent. No missed calls, no messages. It was as if the world really had forgotten me. Recalling the scene I saw before passing out, I felt even more relieved. Tomorrow I was leaving. Staying in the hospital was impossible. If I missed the window, I didn't know when the next chance would be. I supported my aching body, walked out of the ward, and processed the discharge paperwork myself. But as I returned to pack my things to leave, I heard rustling voices from the VIP single room next door. I turned and peeked through the crack. Serena was sitting by Julian's bed, gently peeling an apple for him. Serena, I know now that Chloe's suicide attempt was a trick. I've decided to break up with her completely. I almost got you killed this time because I was too anxious. All these years, making you stay in that small town with me. Once I cut ties with Chloe, we'll go back to New York. I'll have my parents propose to your family. I didn't listen to the rest of Julian's speech. I just saw Serena's hand pause mid-peel, looking up at him blankly. There was no surprise or excitement on her face. Maybe happiness came too suddenly, and she didn't know how to accept it yet. But she had liked him for so long, she absolutely wouldn't refuse. I didn't continue watching the finale of their deep love story. Dragging my exhausted body, I left the hospital. I took a motorcycle taxi back home. Looking at the courtyard where I grew up, I felt a twinge of reluctance. Of course, I wasn't missing Serena, just the fact that this was my home. Although my parents were gone, it held many of my memories. By the time I finished packing, the sky was growing light. I packed the gifts Serena had given me over the years into a box and inventoried them. A ring, bought from a dollar store. A shirt, bought for $4 at a town stall. Matching scarves, $2 with free shipping, her birthday gift to me in college. A crystal phone charm, $4 with free shipping, her third anniversary gift. A box full of items. Under the morning sun, they looked brand new, shining brightly. The total value was barely over $100. This was what she had given me in 5 years. Because in her eyes, I was cheap enough that a tiny trinket could make me happy for a long time. A cheap country boyfriend deserved cheap gifts. I placed these things on the table in the gazebo in the yard. If she wanted to take them, fine. If she didn't, Old Man Miller could throw them away. After doing this, I took out my phone. I saw Serena calling me, along with over 10 messages. I didn't open a single one, nor did I answer the call. Just then, the person coming to pick me up called. "Hello, I've arrived at your door." I responded, then turned off the phone, took out the SIM card, and tossed it on the table. I took one last look at the quiet yard. This was my home. I didn't know when I would return. When I do return, I hope never to see Serena again. Let us be strangers forever. She isn't worth my nostalgia. Serena took the opportunity while buying breakfast for Julian to call me. No answer. She dialed several times in a row, finally getting the prompt. "The number you dialed is not in service." In the meantime, she sent me many WeChat messages, none of which received a reply. She had intended to go to the ward to find me, but the nurse told her I had been discharged. Panic flashed across Serena's face again, but she quickly hid it. She just assumed I'd gone home and my phone might be broken. After she arrived at the hospital, the police officer handling the accident had contacted her. Knowing I was also sent to the hospital and deemed to be fine, Serena hadn't contacted me. But as time passed, seeing the sky brighten, she still hadn't received a call from me. Usually, if I was okay, I would have called her long ago. So she used buying breakfast as an excuse to step out. Returning to the ward, the frown on Serena's brow smoothed out, and a gentle smile climbed back onto her cheeks. The next second, she froze. While she was out buying breakfast, Chloe had arrived at the hospital. She was sitting by the bed, virtuously feeding Julian chicken soup. Serena walked forward and placed the breakfast quietly on the cabinet. Julian looked up and said apologetically, "You're marrying Caleb tomorrow. Go back and prepare early. Chloe is here to take care of me. It's fine." For some reason, hearing Julian say this, Serena felt a sudden weight lift off her heart. The heavy stone from earlier vanished quietly. This meant he wanted her to pretend what she heard earlier never happened. Because Chloe was back. No matter how resolved Julian sounded, as soon as Chloe appeared, he changed direction immediately. It seemed Chloe's return held infinite charm for him. In the future, Julian hesitated, but continued. "We shouldn't contact each other anymore. Chloe and I talked it out. She forgave me for hiding my identity. So, Serena, finding someone you love who loves you back is really hard. I'm planning to take Chloe home, make my family accept her, and then we'll get married next month. Honeymoon in Hawaii. As for you and me, actually, we were just close friends. We never crossed that final line. In the future, I hope we don't meet. Don't disturb my happy life with Chloe. Chloe just told me her true feelings. If you hadn't kept giving me gifts all these years and being ambiguous with me, she wouldn't have picked fights so often. So, Julian didn't finish, but the meaning was clear. Serena was silent. She was quietly thinking about what he said. Finding someone who loves you back is really hard. Serena suddenly realized why. When Julian proposed going back to New York, she didn't agree immediately. She felt calm, even hesitant, because unknowingly, her heart was filled with someone else. Julian was just an obsession, a masochistic pleasure from being rejected. So when he suggested returning to the city, she felt panic. Exactly. Someone about to get married still flirting with another's boyfriend. I don't know how Caleb has such bad luck to meet a woman like you. Chloe muttered softly. If I were Caleb, I would have told a woman like you to get lost ages ago. Hearing this, Serena's body shook violently. Seeing Chloe about to continue, but being stopped by Julian, and seeing Chloe's unreconciled look, Serena suddenly panicked. She wondered if I knew about the foolish thing she had done all these years, would I, like Chloe suggested, forgive her easily? I should. In her view, I loved her so much, even gave up a great future for her. I wouldn't turn on her over a small thing like this. As long as she bought a good gift, coaxed me earnestly, and gave me her most passionate intimacy, confessing everything. Husband and wife fights always end in bed, don't they? Besides, I love her more than my own life. I wish you happiness. Dropping that sentence, Serena left the hospital without lingering. It felt like the clouds had parted to reveal the sun. She finally knew what she really wanted. She urgently wanted to return home. Just leaving the hospital, Serena prepared to hail a taxi, but lowered her hand. I should bring a gift back for Caleb. The best gift should be a bride in a wedding dress. I want to give Caleb the happiest wedding. She wanted to give herself to me, because in her heart, that was the best gift for me. Thinking of this, Serena didn't hesitate. She made call after call, gathering all friends and family. She used every resource and connection she had. Even the group of girlfriends still touring the town were put to use. She hired the best MC and a dazzling performance team from town. Cannon salutes, a choir, fireworks. Under her powerful arrangement, everything was there. Serena used her maximum influence. She just wanted to give me a surprise, a gift I would never forget. Serena arrived at the village entrance in a makeup van. She was wearing an ancient, festive phoenix crown and chape, a traditional red wedding gown. She looked like a princess walking out of a TV show. She was going to wear a white wedding dress, but suddenly remembered I once said that our people should wear our own romance. So she chose the festive red. She believed that when she appeared before me in this outfit, I would be stunned by her beauty and effort. I would definitely be moved to tears. Then she would step forward and hug me gently, giving me the deepest, most romantic kiss. In Serena's fantasy, everything was perfect. At this time, the village had been decorated festively. When the villagers and children crawled out of bed, they were dumbfounded by the sight before them. Even Old Man Miller was puzzled. When asked, he learned it was all done by Serena for me. He was confused. Didn't I say the wedding was off? But thinking it was my big day, the old chief smiled happily. I was the only college graduate from our village who went to New York. He and a crowd of onlookers walked toward my house. By this time, Serena had stepped down from the makeup van. Standing at the village entrance, her girlfriends held up the long train of her gown behind her. She walked step by step into the ancient village. To everyone she met, young or old, she greeted them gently and politely, telling them she was marrying me today. Then, amidst blessings, Serena handed out red envelopes containing thousands of dollars to everyone. What was throwing away money? For me, in this moment, she was willing to give everything. Caleb, I'm here. When Serena stood outside the wooden gate of my yard, the gifts she had carefully prepared were placed outside one by one. The festive wedding attire, the deed to a New York villa, keys to a brand new Hummer, 12 gold bars, a custom Cartier wedding ring. Countless items, looking so dazzling in this moment. Serena had decided not to pretend anymore. She wanted to confess everything. She wanted to use her best self to compensate me. It seemed only this way could she earn my forgiveness. The onlooking villagers stared with wide eyes. Before this, Serena had never shown such a wealthy side. Before, though beautiful, she looked thrifty and hardworking. Today, she transformed into a noble princess dripping with wealth. Under these gazes, Serena stepped forward with a smile and nervousness, pushing open the creaking wooden door. As the door opened, she seemed to see a happy future, and her smile became even more brilliant. The morning sun hit her, displaying her beauty and happiness to the fullest. Caleb, 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 I'm back. She stood at the door, shouting excitedly inside. Time passed minute by minute. The atmosphere grew heavier. No one answered. The sunlight continued to fall. Confused gazes fell on Serena, making it feel like she was performing a monologue alone. Caleb might be busy inside and didn't hear. I'll go in personally to surprise him. Serena continued to smile, confidently, walking slowly into the yard. On such an important day, she didn't believe I could forget, unless I didn't love her anymore. But in her heart, how could that happen? Not seeing me in the yard, Serena trotted into the house. Caleb, I'm here. I'm here to fulfill our promise. Come out, stop hiding. I know you're here. I know you're just shy. No one in the living room. No one in the bedroom. No one in the backyard. No one on the second floor. She searched every place and room in the house. Only still, air rippled. No shadow of me. Serena suddenly began to panic. Where did Caleb go? She asked herself constantly, finding no answer. Serena stood in the bedroom, panicked and lost, watched by her friends who walked in. Serena, did Caleb leave? The closet is empty, and a lot of things I saw last time are gone. Hearing this, Serena's body trembled as if struck by lightning. She looked up abruptly, scanning everything again seriously. It really was empty. Nothing left. The clothes in the closet, hers or mine, not a single piece remained. The photos hanging on the wall, I don't know when they were taken down. All traces of our intimacy vanished, leaving only the marks of nails on the wall, shocking to behold. She felt like those nails were stabbing in her heart instantly. So painful, even breathing hurt. Impossible. This is our home. Caleb wouldn't abandon me. She tremblingly searched the entire house again. Again, nothing. The only thing she found was despair and terror. Gone. Really gone. Everyone watched Serena, who looked like she was going mad, and stayed silent. As confident and festive as she was before, she was now equally sorrowful and desperate. No one expected that after happily preparing everything and coming here, it would end in such an embarrassing result. Serena, no need to be like this. There are plenty of fish in the sea. Plenty of men with 2 legs. Yeah, Serena, you weren't serious about Caleb anyway. It was just an act. I say it's time to end it. A cheap rural boyfriend. Serena, you don't need to be this sad. If he's gone, he's gone. Let's order some male models. There are plenty better than him. Her girlfriends persuaded her one after another. However, Serena suddenly glared at them coldly. Shut up. All of you shut up. I love Caleb. I like Caleb. I won't allow you to speak ill of him. He is the rest of my life. We swore oaths to the mountains and seas. We walked through. Her words stopped abruptly. Yes, he must have gone somewhere else, just because he was in a bad mood. Serena ran out of the house. She wanted to find me elsewhere. Caleb loves me so much. He gave up so much for me. No matter what I do wrong, no matter if I throw tantrums, he always forgives me considerately and treats me well without reservation. He wouldn't leave. He definitely wouldn't. I trust him. She spoke to the others, but also secretly to convince herself. When Serena returned to the yard, she finally noticed the box on the table filled with the gift she had given me. A small SIM card lay quietly on the table, reflecting a faint light in the sun. Serena's body went completely stiff. Today was their big wedding day, the happiest, most beautiful day. Why? Why? Old man Miller walked in then, standing before Serena and sighing gently. Actually, Caleb came to me a few days ago. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Serena ran out of the yard. She wanted to find me, still believing I just went somewhere else to work or clear my mind. She fell at the door. She hurriedly stripped off the heavy ceremonial robe, leaving only the simpler red dress underneath. She stood up, ignoring everyone's gaze, running toward the village entrance. She even kicked off her high heels. Barefoot, the pain of stones and mud couldn't suppress the panic in her heart. She had to find me. Otherwise, she would have regrets for life. She might never love anyone again. Countless eyes watched her receding figure silently. In the morning light, she seemed to be chasing a false hope, leaving the festive decorations in the village shining brightly, leaving the prepared gifts still dazzling, the morning glow falling on them, displaying colorful brilliance. The wedding robe, discarded by the road, went unnoticed. While it felt festive and happy, it was filled with sorrowful loneliness. A gust of wind covered it in dust. Serena arrived at the orchard. The wind blew through the leaves, rustling. She called my name over and over. Only the branches that had accompanied me for thousands of nights answered her. They swayed silently in the wind, as if mocking her belated realization. Not finding me in the orchard, Serena left dazedly, not knowing where else to look. The breeze blew her thoughts of missing me to every corner of the old town. The Tower of Forgotten Love. The first spot I took her to on her first day here. Back then, she said she would never forget me in this lifetime. Now she came here looking for me, seeing hundreds of tourists, but unable to see my figure in her memory. Goose Lake, where wild geese nested every year. The lake was calm, couples rowing boats, but the scene of her playing with me on a boat was nowhere to be found. Caleb, where are you? Do you really not want me anymore? Serena walked down the street, lost and stumbling. She didn't care about the strange looks from others. She asked everyone who had any connection to me. No one could give her news about me. She searched everywhere I used to take her. No figure resembling me. It was as if I had passed through her world and then completely vanished from it. Suddenly, Serena fell to the ground. Coming back to her senses, she found herself unknowingly halfway up Mount Sentinel. And not only did she fall here, she twisted her left ankle. Just as she wanted to rub her twisted ankle, she realized her heels were long gone. Her bare feet were covered in cuts and bruises. But for some reason, she felt no pain. It was as if she was numb. Or maybe the pain in her heart far outweighed the suffering of her body. Serena bit her lower lip. Tears flooded her eyes like a rising tide, instantly turning the skin around her eyes red. She thought, if Caleb were here, he would never let me suffer like this. Even if she just scratched her finger, I would ache for a long time, then carefully clean it with iodine and bandage it. But now she could only watch these wounds widen bit by bit, just like the pain in her heart, difficult to heal. Even so, she bit her lip until it bled, refusing to let a single tear fall, even as they swirled in her eyes. When she struggled to get up, she suddenly realized. This was exactly where I had twisted my ankle. Identical, except now, the person with the twisted ankle was her. Instantly, Serena froze, stunned. It felt as if an invisible hand of fate had pushed her down right here. Was God punishing her? Before, she had left me here alone. Now, she had fallen here alone too. Her heart felt an inexplicable sorrow. The sun hung on the horizon, just like that day when she abandoned me to climb the mountain with Julian. Time seemed to flow in the glow, scenes replaying before her eyes. So, when I had Julian, I ignored Caleb so much. Serena clutched her chest, muttering to herself. It hurt, heart-wrenching pain. She didn't know when she truly fell in love with me, but she knew clearly now that no one had ever treated her so well. No one would give up their future for her, struggling forward for 5 years because of an ethereal promise. But for a man who treated her with his life, she left me alone halfway up the mountain. Guilt, regret, pain, unwillingness. Emotions instantly occupied Serena's body and soul, as if carved into her cells and flesh. She stared at the distant sunset. Only now did she realize that watching the sunset alone could be so lonely and cold. The regret in her eyes made her wonder what kind of disappointment and pain I must have felt watching her and Julian laughing as we walked away. I gave her everything, but she presented her best to Julian. Smack! Serena suddenly slapped herself hard. Serena, I hate you. I hate you to death. Why did you treat Caleb like that? Why? Passers-by looked at her like she was a monster. No one could give her an answer, including herself. A red ribbon drifted slowly down from the mountaintop, landing squarely in front of Serena. She raised her hand to catch it gently, her breathing becoming faintly rapid. She recognized it. This was the one she and I wrote together at the summit, the one we threw off the cliff together. After a meal, holding you in my arms. Caleb, work at sunrise, rest at sunset, for the rest of my life, by your side. Serena looking at the writing on the ribbon. Serena smiled, a very bitter smile. When she made this wish, she was serious. She saw the 8 words I left. Short, but they made her feel so warm. Such simplicity, wasn't that what she wanted too? Now, she had lost it all. Picking chrysanthemums under the eastern fence, leisurely seeing the southern mountain. She suddenly realized the life I wanted. It wasn't about excitement. As long as she was there, we could go anywhere. But she knew that was the past. Not now. She hadn't expected this red ribbon to float in the mountains for so long, only to return her hand. The only difference was that it wasn't new anymore. It had faded, the edges were frayed, and the writing had become faint. Wishes can fade too. She knew the harm she caused me was just like this ribbon, never able to return to its original state. Our past seemed to lose its original self as the ribbon faded. I know now that I love you to the bone. Serena stood up, murmuring and tied the ribbon to a nearby branch. Watching the ribbon sway gently, she saw another, newer red ribbon dancing in the sunset nearby. It was the one I hung up that day, the one belonging to strangers. Everything looked so discordant, yet so natural, like cycles repeating. Standing under the sunset, Serena stood for a long time. Until the sun completely set and night covered the earth, she didn't move a step. She just watched the red ribbon on the branch quietly. Finally, she turned and went down the mountain. She didn't climb to the top because she knew I wouldn't be there. Stepping through the darkness of the night, she arrived at the foot of the mountain step by step. Seeing the sea of lights amidst the noisy crowd, Serena's heart hurt even more. Last time she was here too. She and Julian came down by cable car and finally saw me walking down alone. She hadn't notified me because that day, her eyes only held Julian. Maybe she thought of me for a split second, but only a second. Serena raised her hand, wanted to slap herself again, but dropped it silently. Useless. It was all useless. She finally knew why she had been so reckless. Because the love I gave her made her fearless. Because she thought I would never leave her. Because she understood that I loved her so much. How could I bear to leave her? So she could make mistakes countless times, ignore me like air countless times. Now that she had woken up, she found herself like the sea of lights at the foot of the scenic mountain. In the waning lights, of the lonely shadow by the cold river, seeing no old friend. Serena picked up her phone unwillingly, trying to dial my number again. Still the tone, not in service. Finally, she had to send a message in a begging tone, asking where I was. But clicking on WeChat, she realized that of the dozens of messages she sent, I hadn't replied to a single one. The chat box was empty. This had never happened before. Whenever she messaged, no matter how busy, I would reply immediately. Looking at the chat interface, she felt dazed for a moment, like she was in a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. Soon, Serena typed a message and sent it. When a red exclamation point appeared before her eyes, her head spun instantly. It felt like a mountain was pressing on her chest. She couldn't breathe for several seconds. Darkness swirled before her eyes. Rubbing her eyes fiercely, she unwillingly opened other apps. Without exception, she couldn't send me any messages. She asked herself internally why. Despair instantly shrouded her entire world. Serena couldn't understand why I would be so decisive and cold, almost heartless, leaving no room. She shook, trying not to collapse on the ground. The hand holding the phone trembled. Suddenly, a young couple in front of her hung a prayer plaque on a red lantern. Serena woke up with a start. Remembering that day, I also hung a prayer plaque. Maybe this was her last hope of finding me. Like grasping at straw, she ran forward frantically, knocking into passers-by without caring. She searched the entire lantern festival. She didn't even remember where I hung the plaque, because she hadn't paid attention to details that day. Searching piece by piece, until 3 hours later, she found my prayer plaque on a broken red lantern. Serena took it down carefully, opened it. The moment the handwriting fell into her eyes, it was bone-chillingly cold, like a basin of ice water poured over her head, freezing her from head to toe. For the rest of my life, may I never see Serena again. Years from now, may we never meet. My cheapness is a future you cannot afford. Caleb, 3 lines, 3 sentences, revealing my most essential emotions. Serena understood everything instantly. Memories replayed like a movie in her mind. So Caleb already knew everything. Why didn't you give me a chance? A chance to explain? A chance to keep you? This was the wish I made. She never expected this ending. The tears in her eyes finally couldn't be held back, surging out. What appeared before her eyes were her repeated neglects of me. Only now did she know I decided to leave amidst repeated disappointments. Giving up this love that shouldn't have been mine. Serena collapsed on the ground, as if all her strength was drained in an instant. She lay calmly on the ground, ignoring the crowd gathering around her. Her hand gripped that prayer plaque tightly. The most fragile place in her heart was opened. But she couldn't figure out when exactly I discovered those secrets. But it didn't matter anymore. She only knew that I had chosen to distance myself from her world completely, just as the wish on the prayer plaque said, resolute and calm. But if she had cared about me even slightly that day, perhaps she would have noticed sooner. She suddenly remembered the sound of me packing, the act of throwing things away, and later returning home to find the photos missing from the wall. If she had just paid a little attention, perhaps the outcome would have been infinitely different. What a pity. The love I gave her had ultimately led her to choose recklessness. In front of her, the prayer lantern shone. In the night sky, fireworks set off by others suddenly exploded, illuminating the dark starry sky, but failing to light up her soul, which was gradually being wrapped in the abyss. The ground felt cold against her, but she could no longer feel my fiery passion. Time seemed to flow backward before her eyes. She saw a scene from a late night when she had a high fever. I carried her through pouring rain to the hospital. We were still in college then. She saw the first day she arrived in this strange old town, unable to sleep, and I gently massaged her shoulders to relax her. She also saw the couple standing at the top of Mount Sentinel, youthful and sunny, passionate and looking forward to the future, eyes full of deep love, faces radiating happiness. That was her and me, 5 years ago, climbing Mount Sentinel. But owning these memories only made her realize today. Because before her eyes, she saw the day of the car accident. She saw herself caring only about saving Julian first, leaving me alone in the dangerous car. I paid so much for her, yet what she left me was a back turned in a moment of mortal danger, caring for someone else. It was as if in this moment, Serena felt my emotions and mood from that time. She thought, if it were her, I would definitely have saved her first without hesitation, right? If I saved not her, but another girl. Serena didn't know how desperate and painful she would feel in that situation. It was the kind of despair of being wrapped in the abyss, shrouded in darkness, breaking into hell, with no one willing to pull her out. And that person was the one she was closest to, the one she cared about most. Because Serena knew that in this world, without parents, she was already my closest person. My whole world was her. And her world did not have me. Bone deep pain, total realization. It was just so. Serena's face was covered in tears. I'm sorry. She wanted to open her mouth to say something, but her voice seemed cut off, unable to spit out half a word. She raised her hand to grab something, but finally let it drop weakly. She fainted from the total emotional collapse. Before, she was firm that I must be in some corner. Now she wasn't. Losing the support of belief, the great emotional collapse completely crushed her body, mind, and soul. All that remained was a boundless dark mountain pressing down. Her heart seemed to stop. Her breathing ceased. When Serena woke up, she was in the hospital. 3 days. No food, no water. She just lay there quietly, eyes open, pupils staring blankly at the ceiling. She was alone in the ward. So waking up alone in a hospital room, not seeing the person you want to see most, is this unbearable. And that day, I must have been like this too, right? Serena hated her past self to death. She was actually in the next room taking care of another man. This was her greatest regret. She thought, if I had woken up that day and the first thing I saw was her, if she had saved me first, everything would have been rewritten. But where are there so many ifs? Because she knew clearly that day in the ward was her last chance to explain to me, to win me back, but she missed it again. Even when she sent messages and called without seeing my reply, had she realized immediately and chased me home, it might have changed. But she missed that too. The phone she had been clutching buzzed. Serena picked it up weakly. It was the old butler from New York calling. Miss, we have a lead on the person you asked me to investigate. He isn't on any exit lists, but through various inquiries, I found out he was picked up by the military. I used your grandfather's connections. The authorities launched Project Firebird, a top-secret national project. Mr. Vance has entered the project's experimental base. 7 years, isolated from the outside world. Maybe longer. Project Firebird. Serena remembered 5 years ago when I rejected another research project to come back with her. Obviously, my ability was strong, having gained recommendations and recognition from above. Even in school, I had my mentor's recommendation. But that time, I gave it up. But now, Serena knew I wouldn't give it up again, because I had encased the heart she wounded in concrete. But if so, wouldn't she be unable to contact or see me for a long time? Just as this thought emerged, Serena's heart panicked completely. She hurriedly asked the butler to inquire about this project, to see if he could find a time and chance for her to meet me. Even knowing the hope was slim, she didn't want to give up. The butler called back quickly. Miss, this project is red-level top secret. People only revealed this much out of respect for your grandfather's past leadership. You shouldn't risk it lightly. A slight mistake could bring disaster. The butler was her grandfather's secretary who stayed on after retiring. He was an elder of the family. If he said so, there was definitely no turning point. The ward fell into deathly silence again. The darkness outside the window was like a beast opening its fangs, ready to swallow her. Serena closed her eyes in pain. Tears slid endlessly from the corners of her eyes. The choking sobs in her throat couldn't cover the regret in her heart. Her heart felt like it was pierced by nails again and again, healing and piercing. Countless memories surged like a tide. wrapping around her consciousness. The warmth of hugging while watching the New Year's gala on New Year's Eve, my face turning redder than a monkey's bottom every time she kissed me. The warmth of my embrace when waking from a nightmare. Day and night, every smile so vivid and bright, like a story that happened a second ago. But in this moment, it came to an end. Because Serena knew those were things from a long, long time ago. Back then, she was someone whose heart was full of Julian Thorne, so she subconsciously ignored the sincere heart I gave her with everything I had. Now that she had realized, looking back, only chaotic memories remained. She was powerless to blame herself. She had no qualification to blame herself. She could only painfully endure everything she brought upon herself. Serena left the hospital that night and returned to my home. She found Old Man Miller and rented the house and orchard I had intended to lease out. Then she used her connections to get back all the things I had thrown away, cleaning them with her own hands. Serena restored the home to its original state. Even the photos on the wall, she hung back up. It seemed only this way could she find a shred of comfort for her soul. Another New Year's Eve passed. Without me. Serena single-handedly drove the village's economy and even moved her company's headquarters here. She took over the family business, starting from the bottom. It took 2 years to take full control of the company. Then she moved back to the old town, setting up a new office here. The leaders of the town and county welcomed her with open arms. At the same time, she helped pave the village roads, installed streetlights, and created a tourist village like a paradise. She did all this just to let me see her heart when I came back. Unable to return the apology to me, she could only choose to repay my hometown in this way. Perhaps this would lessen the guilt in her heart. But every quiet night, memories of the past still hit her like a tide, wrapping around her. So, Serena constantly used high-pressure work to numb herself. Until another New Year's Eve. She heard the news of my return. On New Year's Eve, Serena refused the invitation to the celebration banquet from her subordinates. She drove home alone. The same courtyard as 7 years ago. Nothing had changed. Just walking outside the gate, she met the neighbor Annie. Seeing Serena, she sighed deeply. 7 years. Caleb hasn't come back once. How many years does a woman have in her youth? Why torture yourself like this? The words poked the softest part of Serena's heart. My departure made her seal herself completely. She rarely showed expression on her face anymore, like a cold machine running constantly. But as she aged, her family began introducing her to suitors. Everyone was rejected firmly by her. No one knew why she suppressed human desires so resolutely, living alone for 7 years. Now, she was not only mature, but even colder. She seemed to care little for anything. Only returning to this warm little home did Serena realize what she truly wanted. Sitting in the yard watching the clouds roll and the snow fall, in that quiet time under the starry sky, she felt infinite relaxation. She cooked alone. Then she placed 2 sets of chopsticks on the table, just like when I was still there. This Serena was the real Serena. She had been waiting for me to return, even if her looks were no longer as youthful as back then. But looking at the spotless room, disappointment filled her eyes again and again. After eating the dinner she made herself, she still felt no appetite. She still wanted to eat my cooking. The next day, she began her break. She planned to just sit quietly at the desk, staring blankly at the flying snow outside. The continuous buzzing of her phone pulled Serena from her daze. She never paid attention to the workgroup chat, but a message caught her eye like a magnet. It made her body shoot up from the chair. Top secret. The 6th-generation stealth fighter, self-developed by the state and researchers from MIT, succeeded in its transoceanic maiden flight. A certain research team, led by Caleb Vance. Serena's body couldn't help but tremble. 7 whole years. She finally waited for news about me. Seeing my name again, she suddenly teared up, reading every word of the report seriously. Inside was a group photo. Her gaze fell entirely on me. At 35, I looked more mature than before. My skin was much darker, but the determination in my eyes was greater. In my face, she saw traces of the past, still smiling that confident, gentle smile. At this moment, Serena realized for the first time that I was no longer the boy who was willing to have only her in his eyes for love. I was like a bird leaving the tree, striking the vast sky, displaying my most dazzling side to the whole world. Brilliant. Spectacular. Until she saw that I was returning to New York to attend a seminar and press conference. Serena could no longer suppress the surge in her heart. Before she could even put on a coat, ignoring the tears on her face, she ran out of the house. She was going to New York. But the moment she stepped out, the biting cold wind instantly sobered her. She froze. What if she went to New York? Even if she saw me, so what? Would I still respond passionately to her love like before? She had hurt me all over. Would I choose to forgive the mistakes she once made? After Project Firebird ended, I returned to New York. Looking at the city I hadn't seen in 7 years, covered in steel and concrete amidst the traffic, I felt a sense of unreality. It felt like what was before my eyes was the dream. Staying in the windswept Research Institute for 7 years made me unaccustomed to New York's climate, especially seeing the streets decorated with lights, the scent of the new year hitting my face. Another spring festival. Caleb, what are your plans for the future? The project leader, Dr. Silas Mercer, walked over and patted my shoulder. This white-haired old man with piercing eyes held a high status in the scientific community. In these 7 years, I gained Dr. Mercer's appreciation and became his final disciple. I want to continue studying by your side, mentor. These 7 years taught me a lot, and I learned there's always a higher mountain. I scratched my head humbly. I saw Dr. Mercer silence for a while before saying seriously, "You're not young anymore. Studying is good, but life must be lived. Besides pursuing limits, life has many things worth cherishing. Friends, family, home." I nodded frequently at Dr. Mercer's teachings. I knew he meant well. After all, for 7 years, I dove into the project, showing him almost no personal life. Mostly because I seemed to have found the direction I pursued in life. Yearning for the true sea of stars. The journey of forging the sword for the country. For me, my parents were gone. Romance was no longer the main tone of my life. By the way, I plan to take your junior sister traveling for the spring festival. So, let's go to your place. Heard the tourism development there's been quite good in recent years. Dr. Mercer walked away, smiling without waiting for me to refuse. Watching his back, I couldn't help but smile bitterly. This was his well-intentioned effort. Thinking of Dr. Mercer's granddaughter, my junior sister, added a bit more bitterness. I remember meeting her 5 years ago. She was just a girl about to take her SATs. I don't know if our first conflict made her remember me. Now, 5 years later, the girl had grown into a graceful beauty. She joined Dr. Mercer's team before even graduating college. Of course, Dr. Mercer's only close disciple was me. This beautiful junior sister was Dr. Mercer's eldest granddaughter. We got on the bus to the hotel. As soon as we arrived, I received many congratulatory messages. Friends, classmates, colleagues. The news that I led the team to conquer the engine problem of the 6th-generation fighter made me a hot topic. Major media outlets were scrambling to report. The state had no intention of hiding it, seemingly wanting to push me as a model of the era. But I knew my seniority wasn't enough. Behind this was Dr. Mercer's push. He really liked me as a disciple. Suddenly, I received a friend request from a stranger. "Caleb, can we talk properly? Can you give me a chance to explain?" No need to guess. Just seeing the tone, I knew who it was. Serena Sterling. Thinking of this person again, I just placed the phone by the bed calmly, ignoring it. Memories had gone with the wind. There was no need to taste the past. Her appearance could no longer trigger any emotional fluctuation in me. It was as if she wasn't my girlfriend from 7 years ago, but a stranger I didn't know. I didn't accept the request. I just didn't want to waste time on strangers. I took a shower, laying in bed reading for a while. Just as I was about to sleep, Dr. Mercer sent me 7 or 8 messages, ding-dong, ding-dong. Opening them, I couldn't help but smile slightly. She was declaring war on me. In the years to come, she would let everyone know she was Dr. Mercer's best student. Looking at these provocative words, I replied to each gently. Soon, she sent me one last message. "Scared to accept the challenge? That's fine. As long as you pass my pursuit review and approve me to be your wife for the rest of your life, I'll admit you're forever the best." Sleeping. Good night. Don't reply. I looked at the phone for a long time, finally choosing to read without replying. Mostly, I didn't know what to reply. It took 2 days for the press conference and seminar to conclude successfully. Dr. Mercer walked over and told me we would receive awards in October to honor contributors like me. I wanted to refuse. I really didn't like these external, empty titles. Sometimes they felt like burdens. But under Dr. Mercer's strong attitude, I had to compromise. He said some external things could be discarded, but some must be possessed because it would make my future journey much more convenient. After the seminar, I met Alara, who had been waiting outside the conference room. Dr. Mercer dragged me and her into an ancient town without much change. Ancient charm was the keynote here. It wouldn't change for a long time. I acted as a guide for Dr. Mercer's family and arranged for them to stay in my home, that yard I had been away from for so long. When I came back, I had already asked Old Man Miller's son to take back the yard and house. I didn't plan to rent it out anymore. Old man Miller passed away 3 years ago. I took time to visit his grave. 7 years, always impermanent. The place hadn't changed much, but familiar people were fading away. When I returned home and saw the layout inside, I knew who had rented it for the past 7 years. Because the appearance inside was exactly the same as when I left 7 years ago, restored to its original state. Photos, ornaments. She had found them all and put them back in their original places. Although I didn't know how Serena lived later, I really didn't care or pay attention. What did her future have to do with me? However, from the current situation, I could guess a thing or two. I even knew clearly that Serena, rejected by me on the app, would definitely appear in front of me again. This day would come sooner or later. Caleb, these wood carvings are so beautiful. The sister in the photo is your girlfriend, right? Alara stared at the wood carvings on the table with glowing eyes, then turned to ask me with sudden disinterest. I smiled. If you like them, want as many as you want, I'll carve them for you later. I glanced at the photos on the wall, took them down indifferently, and threw them into the trash can. Although I didn't speak, Dr. Mercer's family seemed to catch the drift. Especially Dr. Mercer. He knew my past. He knew about me and Serena, because when he took me as a disciple, he investigated specifically. After all, if the character wasn't up to par, he wouldn't take them. The next second, I saw a brilliant, gentle smile bloom on Alara's face immediately. It seemed she didn't care about my past at all. She just purely wanted to participate in my future. The next day, I took Dr. Mercer's family around for another day. At dusk, Dr. Mercer suggested I take Alara to see the night view while they went back to rest early. Without waiting for me to refuse, Alara dragged me away. I don't know why, but Dr. Mercer's family gave me the feeling they were afraid Alara, such a beauty, wouldn't get married, pushing her toward me constantly. But I also knew, with the Mercer family's background, if I wasn't excellent enough, would any random person make them act like this? After all, Alara was their only descendant. I accompanied Alara to fly Kongming lanterns, went to the Taoist temple to pray, and came to the Prayer Lantern Festival. Every time she did something, she made a wish. Hope Caleb is healthy. Caleb has a bright future. Caleb treats me well. Caleb. Looking at her devout appearance, I couldn't help but stare blankly. So, being cared for by someone whose eyes are full of you feels like this. It turns out I can also be the happy one who has someone whose eyes and world are filled with me. Being wrapped in warmth feels so comfortable, like bathing in spring breeze, keeping the mood beautiful. But along the way, I still noticed a figure following not far away. She followed at a distance, neither near nor far, not coming up to disturb us. But I could see her eyes were red, suppressing some strange emotion. I didn't pay attention to Serena, even if we had a good relationship once. Now we were just strangers. But she seemed unable to wait anymore, walking up behind me and shouting, "Caleb, can we talk properly?" Her initiative broke the extremely subtle atmosphere. Alara, who was writing a prayer plaque, looked up at me with a gentle smile. "Go ahead. Some things need to be faced eventually." I sighed lightly in my heart, knowing clearly Serena's intention. So even seeing I wasn't alone, she couldn't swallow the loss and unwillingness in her heart, finally walking up to me. I nodded to Alara and walked toward the smoking area not far away, lighting a cigarette calmly. Serena, who followed, choked on the smoke and coughed repeatedly. I never smoked in front of her before. Now I didn't need to care so much. "Caleb, I'm sorry. Can we go back to the past?" I stared calmly at Serena's exquisite almond eyes. Even after 7 years, she was more beautiful than before, full of alluring temperament. But looking at her now, my heart couldn't make any waves. I didn't answer her because I didn't want to accept her apology. In my opinion, the words, "I'm sorry," didn't have any substantial effect. If I accepted, she would think I still had her in my heart, still nostalgic for the past feelings. But I had let go long ago. From the day I left, I said goodbye to the past. I didn't want any intersection with Serena anymore. If you don't disturb my life in the future, that would be the best gift to me. My sentence made Serena lower her proud head instantly. She looked like she was suffering more than death. Because if an apology had no meaning, she could never atone for the harm she caused me. So her face became a few shades paler. Even her body trembled faintly. I heard her uncontrollable choking sobs and saw tears of grievance and sadness flowing from her red eyes. If it were before, seeing her cry, I would hug her without hesitation, then gently forgive all her mistakes. But it was impossible now, and even more impossible in the future. "Caleb, I really love you. I was too stupid before, didn't know what love was, didn't know how to cherish your sincerity. I was wrong, so wrong. I shouldn't have deceived you. I looked up calmly at the night sky. Snow began to fall again. I didn't listen to a word she said. Seeming to sense my indifference, she began to become panic-stricken and helpless, her words becoming stammered. Enough. If you just want to say this, I can't give you any answer. After all, what you think is your own business, nothing to do with me. I just hope you don't appear in front of me again. After speaking, I turned to walk toward Alara. She had finished writing the prayer plaque, standing there quietly waiting for me, watching me. Serena suddenly grabbed my hand tightly. I was wrong, Caleb. I know I was wrong. Forgive me one last time, okay? I can give you anything, including my life. Even if it's the stars in the sky, I'll pluck them for you, as long as you forgive me. Even my family's business, all the assets, I can give them to you. I just want you to stay by my side. Let's live a peaceful, happy life like before, okay? I shook off her hand, turned to look at her aggrieved face, and smiled playfully. Really, it's all true. Me? Then go pluck the stars from the sky. The air fell into a dead silence instantly. There was no possibility between me and her anymore, unless I wanted to demean myself again. But I absolutely wouldn't. Seeing her expression change repeatedly, I knew she realized my determination. Caleb, I can compensate you. I can pay everything to compensate you. Serena seemed unwilling to give up. Hearing her words, I suddenly laughed. Do you not think the word compensate is a strong insult to me? Maybe you deceived me once, but every word I said, every promise, was serious. I chose to leave not because I didn't love, but because I didn't love you anymore. I gave up on you completely. Because I think you're too dirty. I have a clear conscience about the past. I don't need a bit of your so-called compensation. Maybe for you, it's just unwillingness after waking up to the past again. But in the eyes of a kid from a poor family like me, I was already struggling with all my strength. Of course, I hope you don't think we still have a future. I just want to let you know, Serena, between you and me, it ended 7 years ago the moment you and Julian stepped into that hotel. In the future, even if we meet, we are just strangers. I don't know you, you don't know me. Finally, we will never meet again. I walked toward Alara, who was waving happily at me in the distance, without looking back. When I walked up to her, she suddenly jumped up and hugged me. Her sudden kiss caught me off guard. Caleb, I want to be with you forever. I love you. I looked at her, smiling and shaking my head. I haven't agreed to you yet. She flicked her hair lightly. Doesn't matter, as long as I agree. She pulled me to hang the prayer plaque with her wish on the lantern. But Serena was still standing not far away watching us. I didn't look at her again. At this moment, Serena was weeping like a pear blossom bathed in rain. Even though surrounded by people, she felt only endless darkness wrapping around her, as if she were about to sink completely into this boundless abyss. Never to wake up. Looking at the night sky, snowflakes fell all over the sky. Dark clouds covered the stars and moon. She couldn't pluck the stars. This time, there was truly no room for redemption. She had completely lost me, because by my side, there was a girl better than her. Younger than her, more vibrant, more caring about me. Watching my fading figure disappear into the vast sea of lights, finally never to be seen again. Serena opened her mouth. Even if I'm not by your side, you must be happy, joyful, cheerful. Caleb, I wish you happiness. I can see her eyes are full of you. Her whole world is you. Goodbye, my most deeply loved you. Serena turned and walked into the distance. She knew she would probably feel guilty for a lifetime, owing me for a lifetime. But she didn't regret still loving me deeply. Serena knew clearly in her heart that in this life, she wouldn't fall in love with another person. Her figure stepped slowly into the darkness. Years later, Serena, who never married and remained alone, returned to this town full of ancient charm. Still not much change. Even though she hadn't returned for many years, every blade of grass and tree here was so familiar. Pity, the people from the past were long gone. Arriving at my home, the once village had developed. Every household had rebuilt small villas. The road led straight here. Standing in the distance, listening to the laughter coming from the yard, Serena's eyes gradually blurred. Caleb, in your next life, don't meet someone like me again. A lonely shadow by the cold river, seeing no old friend. Finally, no longer the youth we once were. Story complete.